Hey, Inside Out. Thanks so much for joining us for week 2 of Because You Asked. This is a series that we're doing all about faith questions that you guys have and that we all ask at some point or another. Now, if you joined us last week, we talked a lot about why it's important to ask questions and why Jesus was one of the best question askers of all time. This week, we're going to continue with some more specific questions that you may have asked at some point in time in your faith journey. Now, at this point in time in our culture, in our society, there's a lot of people asking some really great questions. Between coronavirus and the racial injustice that is going on in our country and the riots and protests that are happening as a response, there are probably a lot of people out there asking, is God really here? Is God really out there listening to us? And does he actually care about the things that are happening in our world? If you've ever asked that question, I'm so glad that you joined us today, because that's exactly what we're going to be talking about here at Inside Out. The big question that we're answering today is, how do we know that God is really there? How do we know that he's really real? When it comes to trying to answer that question, is God really there and is he really real? There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions. And a lot of people over the years have tried to explain how we can know that God is really out there. Number one, there's the theory of morality, the idea that right and wrong exist and that we all know that there are right things to do and that there are wrong things to do, are proof that someone had to come up with the original right and wrong. A lot of people say this is a great point to that there is a God who is good and he created right from wrong. Number two is the theory of existence. The mere fact that we are here, for a lot of people, proves that there's a God. I mean, we had to come from somewhere, right? We didn't all just magically appear out of nothingness. The fact that we exist proves that someone had to start it. And for people who believe in God, that's God. Number three, the theory of knowing. The fact that we even think about God proves that there probably is a God, right? I mean, I think about my dog a lot, and when he wakes in the morning, he doesn't wonder if there's a God in this universe navigating all the craziness of this world. He pretty much just wonders if he's going to get to go on a walk today and how many treats he's going to get. So the fact that we even think about there being a God proves that there probably is a God to be known. Number four, the theory of design. If you look at the world and this big crazy world that God has created, it looks like there is a creator. It looks like that there's someone put it together just right for us to live in. And in fact, one of the people who believe that nature points to a creator God is the Apostle Paul, who we're going to look at today in the book of Romans. In Romans chapter 1, Paul talks a lot about how we can know that God is really there and how he has proven to us that he really exists. In Romans 1, 19 and 20, this is what Paul says. He says, "Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them. For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and his divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." In those verses, Paul says that we can see and know that God is real because he shows it to us each and every day in the world around us. Now, for many of us, it may not be how we want to see God, or maybe we don't physically see him or physically feel him in our lives. But that doesn't mean that he doesn't prove himself to us each and every day. The fact that we wake up every day and we have oxygen to breathe and water to drink and so many gifts from God point to that God has pre-taken care of us in creating a world that is perfectly designed to have us in it. But the fifth and maybe best explanation of how we can know God is there is the theory of personal experience. The fact that we go through life and we have these moments where we feel like God is real and personal in our lives, and that things happen in our lives that have no other explanation other than God showing up, is the best proof of the existence of God in our world. Because the honest truth is that it's really hard for us to prove that God exists. I mean, I can't show you him. I can't bring him on camera and introduce him to you like I could a human being. But I do believe that God is real and that God is out there and that he really cares about you and he cares about me. I heard it said once that the existence of God is a lot like the wind. You know, you don't ever really see the wind and you don't ever really feel the wind, but you see the effects of the wind. You see it bend and move nature to its power. And in seeing the effects of the wind, we believe and have faith that the wind exists because we see everything around us move to its power. I think the same is true about God. We can know that God exists when we see the world around us move and bend to God's movement and power. Now, I believe that God is up to something special right now. We've been through a hard time the last few months as a culture and as a society. Between the coronavirus and our racial tensions and everything that's going on in our world, I believe that God is setting us up as Christians for something big. Now, the question I have for you is this. In your life, how is God moving and bending the events and circumstances of your life to show you that he's real? What is God doing for you in this time that he wants you to see him moving and bending the world to his movement and power? During this time, we have an amazing opportunity as believers and as Christians to show the world that we care passionately about everyone, just like God does. And I think that we can be part of the solution of showing people that God is really there when we love them how he's loved us. Thank you so much for joining us today for Inside Out. And I pray that as you go to your small groups, that you begin to wrestle with that question. How do I know that God's really there? And how do I see him moving and bending the world around me to show me that he's really real?